So who was King Achaz? Open up your, if you get a Tanakh, we'll go to Malachim. Sefer Malachim Beis, right before the exile of the 10 tribes. This is one to understand what's going on today. Oh, you could open it there. The chapter is, this is Gavaldic, the difference between Achaz and his son Yechizkiyahu, Hezekiah. It says Achaz became king at the age of 20. It's in chapter 16, 2 Kings 16. Okay. Achaz was not approved of in God's eyes. He did, like the kings of Israel, he had a little idol worship. By the way, we don't understand the appeal back then. We can't understand it, but to them it meant, hedging your bets, basically. That's what idol worship basically was. Why would you worship Molech and other gods and Baal? Because you see that they have power. You worship, you don't knock down God's temple, but you also, you try to satisfy all these gods. That's the basic idea. That's how people perceived it. So Achaz, it's mentioned in the book of Isaiah, had a little bit of a problem. The king of the 10 tribes was Pekach ben Remaliahu. He himself had seized the throne after murdering his own predecessor. He himself would be murdered a few years later, assassinated. And he had aligned himself with Ritzin Melech Aram, king of Aram, who ruled Damascus. What was happening at the time? The rise of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians are going to eventually conquer a lot of this part of the world, and they're going to take the 10 tribes into exile. And they're going to almost succeed in doing that with the southern kingdom. And basically, Pekach ben Remaliahu and Ritzin decided that they were going to create a coalition of countries, perhaps some Avar Yarden groups, Ammon and Moab, get the Egyptians on board with this, and themselves, Damascus, the Damascus kingdom of Aram, and the king of Israel, they're going to resist the Assyrians. They're going to join together, and Achaz, for whatever reason, was not going along with this. Achaz felt, I will hedge my bets and align with the Syrians, the Neo-Assyrians, Ashur. And they had this whole plot going that they're going to overthrow Achaz. This is in the beginning of Sefer Yeshayahu. And Yeshayahu told Achaz, don't worry about it, God doesn't want you. He's not going to allow them to put this Ben Tava'al. We don't know who he is, but Pekach had his own man that he was ready to place on the throne of Yehuda once he could get rid of Achaz. So God wouldn't allow this because the Davidians have the right to rule in Jerusalem, even if the current Davidian is not such a good example of this. And that's the whole prophecy where Isaiah came to him, Yeled Yulad Lanu Beini Tan Lanu. You have a child is born unto us, and they called his name Prince of Peace. Okay? Marbea Misra, he's foretelling that Achaz is going to have a son who's going to be pretty messianic himself. It's not the Messiah. Okay, he could have been potentially. So Achaz survived this, and it says that he sent a major bribe to the king of Assyria, saying, "Can you just get rid of this Pekach ben Remaliahu and Ritzin as the prophet of prophecy?" And then basically that's what the Assyrians did. He came and killed Ritzin Melech Aram and destroyed the king of Aram and exiled their people. No more classical Arameans. And a few years later, the 10 tribes fell also. Hoshea ben Elah took the throne from Pekach, realized that Pekach was leading the Jewish people to ruin, the Israelites to ruin. But Hoshea didn't manage to keep his kingdom together. It was already too late. His reforms and whatever he was trying to do were a little too late, and he was taken to exile with his people. And then it says Achaz went to Damascus to greet the conquerors and see what was going. He met them halfway. And he saw that the way they worshipped in their altar, and he basically went along with it. It's like, okay, good. He told his high priest, I want you to build an altar for me in Jerusalem, right next to God's altar, just like this one. I want to go along with what they did. So Achaz basically was the type of prime minister that we have in modern days, which is what? Think about it. What does Achaz do? He's pragmatic, right? He's a vassal of the major. What's the Assyria of today? Yeah, the world power. Okay, the United States basically. They're the ones who call the shots. Achaz was basically paying lip service to Judaism. The temple exists. He's Jewish culturally, but he had other religious pursuits. and he lost territory. He had a pragmatic approach to politics. And when basically two rival kingdoms tried to have him overthrown, he made himself a puppet of the Assyrian regime. And then he sold out his own temple also. It was worth it for him to send the treasures of the temple and turn the temple into a place of idol worship if that's what made the Assyrians happy. Okay? Why is it that we can't? I remember the guys in Migdal arguing this. Why can't we do anything what we want in the Temple Mount? Why can't the prime minister get up and say, you know what? No more Waqf. The Temple Mount will be a place of worship to be run by a group of Levites, like it's supposed to be. Why isn't that on the agenda? Because we have guarantees to Arab countries with whom we have peace deals, basically brokered by the United States, forced on us by the United States, that the Israelis are not going to do that, right? The Jordanians are not going to allow it. Why they call the shots on the temple? But that's the case. So too, Achaz sold out his own temple, like is described in this chapter. Why? Because that's what the Assyrians wanted. They call the shots. So yeah, I think he's a good muscle for especially the current regime and the current ruler. And then you go to his son Chizkiyahu, who's I guess 180 degrees the opposite. Where does Chizkiyahu's story begin? Go to chapter 18. It says Chizkiyahu became king in the third year of Hoshea ben Elah. Ben Esrim Chamesh Shana Yovel Malcho. He was 25 years old. He took the rule for 29 years. His mother's name was Avi, not Avi, but Avi. Okay, and he did what was right in God's eyes. It could have just said like other righteous king. It says Vayasa Yashar ben Hashem Kechasher Asad David Aviv. Other kings are described similarly. They were good kings. But then it continues. He was actually the best. Why? He was the one who finally got rid of the bamos. Mentioned the problem of First Temple time since Solomon was people offering sacrifice outside the temple. He put a stop to that. He got rid of the matzevas. He destroyed the Asherah. And it could be a plural also. Asherah is a singular standing instead of a plural. They used to worship trees in a certain way. He was one who even got rid of Moses' brazen serpent because they start to worship it. Why is that significant? By the way, that mentions it. Okay. Well, what's the significance of getting rid of the brazen serpent? Obviously, if it's an idol and it's being treated like an idol, you should get rid of it. But the problem was Moses made it. There are people who said, perhaps, it's not such a bad, maybe this isn't so idolatrous. Why? Because Moses made this. It must somehow motor, maybe like the Kruvim or something. It's not a problem. If Moshe Rabbeinu made it, it can't be a problem. And Chizkiyahu had the conviction, the true right conviction, to understand that it doesn't matter that Moshe Rabbeinu made this. Right now, it's an idol that is misleading people. We have to destroy it. And it continues. Here's what made him different from his father. Ba'Hashem Elokei Yisrael Batach. He trusted in the Lord God of Israel. After him, there was no one who trusted in God so much, or those who preceded him. As we tried to say before, even his midas bitachon in God was higher than that of David. And there's a midrashim about that. Okay, he excelled in this. How did he demonstrate his trust in God? He cleaved to God, b'dav gabo. He did not stray from after him. He kept his commandments as God had commanded Moses. What did he do? God was with him. Wherever he would go, he would succeed. And he rebelled against the king of Assyria, and he did not serve him. This great righteous king did a lot of things. It tells you a lot of good shevach, many psukim in the praise of this messianic figure. And what's the last line it saves for him? He trusted in God and he rebelled. He said, enough of these Assyrians, I don't care. I'm going to make the temple the one unique place of prayer for our people, get rid of all the avodah zarah everywhere. And by the way, the Assyrians then come in and mock him for such a thing. They tried to retake the place and before their ultimate downfall. So this is a very stark contrast between the two. Okay, Achaz was the type of modern Israeli prime minister who listens to the Assyrians, Americans, sells out the temple and the people because we don't really believe it in any ways. It's just lip service to Judaism, and a real Jewish leader would do like a Hezekiah, just to know that. And we'll talk about more. Hosea says the book of Hosea. What's the theme of Hosea? Stay tuned for what? No, okay, not marriage. No. So read it. So read what Onkelos says, and there's a running theme. We'll talk about it afterwards. By the way, sorry, not Onkelos. Targum Yonasan says so. Hosea, you know how it begins with he is told to take a harlot for a wife and all that. It's a mashal according to Yonasan. It just means go preach to people who don't listen to you. Go preach in Shomron and see how that goes. It's like have a wife who doesn't listen to you, a straying wife. So that's what it means. It'd be good to learn Sefer Hosea, just Targum Yonasan, because he gives you the nimshal, not the mashal. And he talks about very explicitly. We'll see it next week. Too much Tanakh for now. There's no such thing as too much Tanakh, but basically, we should say that Hezekiah took the throne. He's praised for two parallel behaviors. He destroyed the high places, emphasizing worship at the temple, and he broke his foolish, illusory, means it's like an illusion, reliance on the U.S. I mean Assyria. Okay. So people, the United States of Assyria. Yeah.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.